So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. My name is Nicholas J. Orcutt with the Fractured Line. This is Status Check. Today is going to be a special kind of status check. Instead of trying to depress you with the things that are going on in the news and going on in my life, I'm actually going to have a guest today who's going to talk about things that also can be somewhat depressing. Um, but thankfully, she's a lot more bubbly than I am and a lot easier to listen to than I am. So without further ado, my guest today, I'll let her introduce herself to you.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, hi everyone. My name is Imi. I write my page is called Letters from Imi, and I have been on Substack for a year. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I write nonfiction and poetry, and it's so lovely to be a part of this live episode today. So it's nice to be here with all of you.
Thank you for joining us. So, I mean, I guess we'll get the big thing out of the way first. You are from Turkey, right?
I am from Turkey.
Okay. Because I know a lot of people are going to go, I hear an accent. Where is that from?
Can I just ask you, what do you like? How does my accent sound? Because like recently, people have even said I sound Russian. Do I sound Russian to you?
I could see that. I could see it.
Oh.
See, again, because I lived in the Middle East, I can pick it out right away.
Hmm.
But I always say that, people, Middle Eastern people, especially anybody who speaks Arabic, the way that they turn to English, it almost sounds like they're German speakers to me.
Interesting.
'Cause it's that
Yeah, I get
same
it.
sound.
Mhm. Yeah, I would wish if I could hear myself from outside speaking because I've spoke this way my entire life, so I can't tell the accent.
Yeah. Well, like, I have an accent. I don't hear it. I speak the way I speak. I've always spoken this way. Um,
Mhm.
Luckily, I don't sound like a hardcore New Yorker because then nobody would understand me.
Now
Um,
you made me curious about how, like, a hardcore New Yorker sounds like. I'm definitely gonna Google that up.
y Just look up anybody from the Bronx. Anybody from the
Okay,
Bronx. Um,
okay.
Look into a Mets game. It's New York Mets.
That's
Anybody that's wearing Mets gear is going to sound as New York as possible. Uh,
okay.
but, it's great to have you here. You write
Yeah.
significantly different than I do. Um,
Mhm,
your writing tends to focus more on you write poetry and things like that, but your writing tends to focus more on the individual and the self itself. Um,
mhm,
we had talked before going live about how, both of us try to have that personal touch in our writing and we try to incorporate who we are into our writing. And
mhm,
I thought yours was an interesting take, especially on your piece on identity, which I did check. I wouldn't have unsubscribed because of it. I thought it was I like to see when there's that I like to take things that challenge my own thoughts, my own I love that. That is my go-to bread and butter. Um, but what made you decide to tackle that?
I've been having issues with the concept of identity for a while. Basically, I think I've been projecting my own experience to my writing in a way because I write everything based on my lived experience because I that's how I get the learnings from. But I get the learnings from what I've been through. So before moving to England in Turkey, I was just this person who had established her identity based on other people's expectations so much. And while I was in it, I didn't realize it. I just thought that was who I was. And when I had the time, especially my diagnosis in Parkinson's, have like made a lot of change in that. Because like when you experience something like that, at such a young age, and when you don't know if you're ever gonna be okay or recover, because there was no promise of, like, actually being okay or even getting a diagnosis at the time. Yeah, I faced some stuff that I wouldn't assume I would face, and I had to spend so much time on my own. I had to become my own best friend, and I had to face the world in a way, "Okay, you may have you you may have to be for I may have" sorry, I couldn't frame that sentence.
It's okay.
I may have to face the fact that I had to continue life in a way that I would never wanted to. So in that sense, like Milan Kundera has a book. I don't remember its name, but he talks about like, this concept of floor being ripped away under your feet, and it causes a sense of shock. And in that sense of shock, a lot of things have changed for me, and a lot of books I've read, and I realized like identity itself, I don't. have a fight against the concept of identity, but I just wanted to create a, like, show my readers my own realization that sometimes what we clung on to as who we thought we are is something that is just convenient to other people, and we think that is good for us because people keep us around. Because I could also kind of believe most of the relationships and people's mindset is revolving around, as I like to call, individual utilitarianism. So people are usually forming their relationships that, like, based on their own personal interest, and that no one is doing that on, like, any, like, hostility or anything. It's just like a way of being. If someone opens up space for you, you'll just expand and you'll just keep asking for more. So in that sense, I think, like, we tend to not realize that we are actually suppressing who we are in terms of being accepted among the society and to have that feeling of belonging. Whereas when we think we belong somewhere, we're just being accepted because we are not actually who we are, but we are someone convenient.
I mean, that is significantly deeper than I would have gotten into it with, so I appreciate that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
you did talk about something in there which I do wanna talk about. You were diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Mhm.
Um, typically, I always say, you know, because I came from the medical field, I associate Parkinson's with people who are older. Usually it's around
Mhm.
people my age who get diagnosed with it. You were diagnosed really young.
Way too young. Yeah, 24.
So what led to that happening?
If I'm being completely honest, I'm always been a all of none, like, live it to the fullest kind of a person. And, like, I have used drugs in my life. I, like, not in an addiction level, but I have used it for fun. And if I go way back down the story, because it's an interesting one, and I think like it will interest people too. So when I was younger, the last, like, when I was at my senior year at university, I had a boyfriend and we were smoking a lot of weed with him. And at the time, I felt like my anxiety grown too high, and I went to see a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist in the Turkey at the time prescribed me a medication, and not an antidepressant, but some sort of a medication that was supposed to reduce anxiety. And I didn't want to use any medication, but he insisted it. And at the time, I just wanted to feel like more calmer and grounded. So he said, like, that medication was about reducing dopamine, because he explained this whole system where dopamine is like, we all know dopamine as a pleasure hormone, but dopamine is also a movement hormone, as well as according to the psychiatrist, it creates anxiety because it keeps your thoughts on the loop.
Mhm,
So he said, take this on days that you smoke weed, like, for both day and night. And at the time, I was smoking weed both day and night, every day, because it was COVID. So took it every day and night. I didn't know at the time I had Parkinson's genetically. So think about this person's brain who's already unable to produce dopamine takes a medication that reduces the dopamine levels in her brain. So that was, like, the starters. And later, like, as I grew older and as I realized that I liked to party and occasionally use those party kind of drugs, it all combined together. And since I had it genetically, at some point in my life when I started my master's at Reading, it's gonna sound weird when someone says, like, it sounds weird when someone says, like, I woke up one day and I couldn't walk like I used to, but that is what exactly happened to me. It just, like, I think for a time it was gradual, but then it's increased. And, like, it's just like a hold down the process. But initially, that's how it started. And then no one, as you said, would assume 24-year-old to have Parkinson's. So diagnosis process was something on its own. Um, yeah, it was a whole entire journey. And even though, like, way towards the end, I just expected those intoxications had caused something inside my brain, and I expected to not have it genetically, but it turns out I do.
so it's fascinating too that they found that. So I could tell you here, like if you were in the America, if you had presented with those symptoms, especially your age, I don't think they may probably after your 6th or 7th time going to the doctor, they may have done blood work. They would have just attributed it all to anxiety or depression or your
They did that.
medications. It would have been it would have been a miracle for them to actually be able to diagnose you with that. How long did it take you to get the actual diagnosis of Parkinson's?
So before I heard that a lot, by the way. Like you can't imagine how many times people have told me, "Are you sure it's not in your head?" And like it must be psychological, which was horrible because you know what's going on inside your body. It's your body, and you're not. You know, like you've been doing something for years, and then you cannot force your muscles to do the same thing that you know how to do. At first, I kept so actually my psychologist, not the psychiatrist. I've always been clumsy, so I talked with my psychologist on one of our sessions, and she started to trace the path. I told her about this medication that the psychiatrist had prescribed me, and so she sent me to a neurologist, and he also said it was psychological, and I insisted that he run some tests. At the time, there were 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks before I moved to England for my master's. They found a peripheral neuropathy at the time. And what I found out, I had no idea what that was. And for people who don't know, peripheral neuropathy is not the cause, but the result. So when you find out that you have a peripheral neuropathy, you basically know nothing. And then doctors say like this percent of peripheral neuropathies don't know their cause. So I couldn't do anything at the time. I was just told that I shouldn't be drinking as much and etc. And just like smoking and those kind of things, I should stay away. I went to England and it was okay for a while. And then I had a kidney infection in Reading. It was like a very, very severe infection. I had to stay at the hospital for 5 days. After that, my life just like became a gradual decline. I learned that every serious infection increases your neurological symptoms. I had to suspend my master's and come back to Turkey. I had tried many things, by the way, in England. A stranger invited me to like a magic mushroom ceremony. He's because I was seeking healing everywhere, like everywhere. Like I just followed a woman who I didn't know at all to Northampton's, and it helped for a while. That's a whole another story. I have wrote pieces about that too. I came back. It took 4 months for me to get diagnosed. It was beyond like those 8 or 7 doctors. I went to see every single neurologist in Istanbul. There was no one I didn't see, and even it was like it was a bad time. It was like looking back, it feels like someone else lived those times. Um, I went to see a doctor at first, and they told me that I was never gonna be okay, and even if it was going to get better, it would only mean that I will stay the way I was, which was like for me, it was my own personal hell. I didn't want to live that way. I like every day for 3 times a day. I kept saying I wanted to die one time, and I was like, as a person who kept saying that she wanted to die, I was holding on life very tightly. I was trying everything like acupuncture, yoga, many things. One time, a woman, like doctor's assistant, asked me in their waiting room, like how I was. I had to apologize to the other patient who was waiting in the room because my answer was so dark. I was like, "I'm sorry I ruined your day too." So in the end, like I found one doctor and miraculously that there was just one doctor I didn't see, and my mother initially called her, but her appointments were 6 months down the line. And for thanks to my luck,
No.
I guess, I found an appointment and then they sent like they yeah, it was interesting. They started to check like examination. They said like your muscles are too stiff, like your eyeballs are not like you're not looking as a normal person should look at. But these are expert opinions. Like this woman was an expert of the expert. So then they prescribed me levodopa, and I started to use that medication. It wasn't diagnosed, and it started to feel good. And then the dose increased and the dose increased. I remember the first time I was able to walk like a normal person. It was like up to date, there's no better feeling than that.
I mean, that's the fact that you've got a therapeutic level that works for you right now, it's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I could tell you, I actually just covered, what was it, this past week, a report in the United States, 94% of women have their symptoms ignored. Um,
Yeah.
and it's very disheartening to hear that that continues throughout the world. But it is a ongoing problem in medicine as a whole. The
Yeah.
women in particular, like, there's a significant portion of men who say that their doctors aren't paying attention or listening to what they say, but the fact that it's a 94% of women have said that they have been ignored by a healthcare professional when they tell them what's going on, and then it's like, I think it's 60% said after they've told them, they're told that it's anxiety or depression or that it's in their brain. Um,
Yeah,
it is a wild concept, like, absolutely wild,
it
and so
is.
and
It
so
is
it's
very
amazing that you
sad.
got.
Like, thanks. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's amazing that you actually, can say that you found somebody who would listen, and clearly finding somebody that listened is the difference between you wanting to die and you being able to live your life the way you want to.
I guess it has like I think that's like it's less so me finding someone willing to die, willing to die. It's like less so me finding someone willing to listen, more so me making them listen. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
I'm a very persistent person, and I like and like not in a like I want things my way, spoiled kind of way, but I want things my way. And if life is going in a way that I don't want it to be, then why should I continue if I can make it go some other way around? By the way, this thing you mentioned about people saying it's in your head, that happened to me even with a foot fracture in both in England and Turkey. So basically, I had a stress fracture. Among all of doesn't stepping my foot at like in a way that a normal person should have. It's a whole another story again. But I broke my foot out of nowhere. So I had the like 2023 was a haunted year for me. I believe it's cursed, I think. So yeah, anyway, so it got like I felt the pain. I was crying as I walked to the toilet. I went to see like a doctor in Reading, UK. They told me like, "Put some ice, it's just possibly like a nothing might like nothing had happened." And, something did happen because I was crying when I go to the toilet, and I ended up going to Turkey, applying for like a special assistance. They took me to the plane with a wheelchair, and back in Turkey, I went to see a doctor, and the doctor again said, "It's in your head, nothing must have happened." And I literally said to him, "Look, doctor, I cry when I go to the toilet, and you have to take an X-ray or something because I can't live with this pain." And when he took an X-ray, it turns out my foot was fractured.
That is insane. So I've actually had a stress fracture in my foot. I know how much that sucks.
Oh, that sucks big time.
Yeah, like, there is no, you can't stand a certain, like, any it just it goes right through your leg. It's terrible. Um, how is healthcare wise in Turkey? How, like, is it, do you guys have single payer healthcare? Is it, like, massively expensive? How is it for you guys?
I think private health insurance is a bit expensive. So, in price wise, I'm not really aware. My father takes care of it. But like my father has all of our insurances got done. But like what I don't like in Turkey is that private sector is way better than the public. So if you don't have money, so Turkish health sector is actually quite developed. I think it's like it has like a quite way of like different ways of treatments, and I'm still grateful for my country for having me fixed. But it's not treated the same way for everyone. If you're not someone privileged, you may not get the care or help assistance that you might need. So in England, in comparison, what I like, but I don't like the system of NHS because in the end, you have to wait in the emergency room for 5 hours, six maybe, and like somehow you don't get a good like experience out of it, but it's all free in England. So like it's all free, like depending on like who you are, it doesn't change. So Turkey, I believe, is very developed, but Turkey is largely both healthcare wise and other like education wise at the same time. Like it's all like private institutions are the way to go if you have the opportunity to afford it. Otherwise, you won't be able to. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, that's unfortunately, that's kinda how America is where we have, it's funny, in America, even all of our health, we don't have socialized healthcare, But in America, even if you have the top tier insurance, if you go to the ER, you're going to sit and wait for 5 to 6 hours before you get seen. Um, that's just unfortunately it's medicine working against people, right? Um, but
Yeah.
no, it's fascinating because going through what you did. So, like in America, if you were diagnosed in America with Parkinson's, even with great insurance, you would be in so much medical debt right now that there'd be no getting out of it ever. And so it's just fascinating to see you in a situation where it's like you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm healthy, but I
Yeah.
can't afford anything because I can't live because I owe everything to the hospital."
Mhm. I think it has some cost of expenses to it. Like at the time, even going through all these entire tests, I don't work. I don't have an income of my own. I have my father. Thankfully, he's a great father. He like helps me out with my living. At the time, even going through also like even all those tests that I had to go through, it was just like because like when you don't know and when people are looking you as a potential way of getting money, like earning money, because you're someone who doesn't know, and they are like pushing you towards every possible test that you can take, because like you're desperate, and people. Sadly, when you're desperate, you're willing to accept everything, and people are willing to take advantage of everything. That's just the way world is. So like there were a lot of unnecessary tests that they made me take through, and like there were same tests that I've taken, but I didn't know. I was just like, okay, do whatever, but you do what you can, just get me out of this kind of mindset. So that was something on its own. After getting diagnosed, I think like after the diagnosis part, there wasn't much of it besides the medication. So I don't get a prescription in UK. I can't handle that in UK. UK is like sometimes they like make you go through a lot of procedures. So I take my medication from Turkey to UK all the time. Um, I of it too.
Are you frequently in the UK?
Yeah, I live in UK. I live in London.
Okay. So you just travel between the 2?
Not so much. Very rarely come to Turkey. I mostly spend time in London. Whenever I come here, I love my family and all, but like like sometimes you realize you love them more than from a distance a bit. Uh,
I yes, very much
yeah.
so. That is universal.
Yeah. I just came here because I hadn't had like much of a summer this year, and it's still summer in Turkey. So I wanted to see my family and like spend some time here, but I'm mostly in London. I just come here like 2 or 3 times a year.
Alright. So what do you have working on now? What is your goal? What are you hoping for in the next year?
I'm so sorry. I was smiling. My sister wrote something in the chat. She's upstairs listening. She said, at university hospitals, everyone can have a good health service in Turkey, I think. I just wanted to read that. So, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you asked my goals?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where do you wanna like, what's the goal for the next year for you?
Okay. So in Substack, so
In
I
gen
have some interesting plans. Like I didn't expect to grow this ambitious. Hmm. Connection wise, we're having problems. I don't have any ideas of pursuing a career in writing. I recently completed a writing school in Scotland, which was quite condensed and serious. It was sort of like a 1 month, like intense, sort of like shortcut MFA program kind of way. And I realized I grew a lot more confident in that program. And I realized I wanted to do a PhD in creative writing. So I applied to some places, and I have received some positive. Actually, I think you will find this topic very interesting. So my research topic, which was found very promising, and some professors even found it fascinating. So we talked about Parkinson's, right? Parkinson's brain cannot produce dopamine. I also have ADHD, so I always thought of it as very interesting for because ADHD brain chases dopamine and Parkinson's brain can't produce it. So I always found the overlap very fascinating. So what does it do a brain who can't produce something it constantly
It
seeks and like
it's
goes
like a dog
after?
chasing its
So like
tail.
my research question. Uh-huh.
It's like a dog chasing its tail.
Exactly.
Never
That's a
gonna
great
get it.
way to put it. Yeah. 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 So my research question was to use creative nonfiction memoir form as a way of exploring this overlap between of dopamine between two conditions. So that's like a long term goal that I will probably, hopefully, start at February. That nothing is certain yet. But besides that, I have been sending like I love the Substack. I love my Substack family. I love the community here. But as we spoke earlier, sometimes I can't catch up. And if I'm being honest, like with everyone, I just sometimes don't want to catch up at this point because it sometimes gets draining to answer all the notifications all the time. And I know that people would understand. I do write a lot. I've been sending my writing to publications, and I've had like two acceptance. One of my poems got published. I'm expecting a publication, so I'm pursuing that route. My long-term goal is to publish my memoir, which I'm hoping to enter its manuscript. With its manuscript, I'm gonna enter the Bridgeport Prize with
Okay.
Bridgeport Prize competition.
No, that's a good one, especially if it's have you actually finished your manuscript for it?
I have finished two manuscripts.
Alright, there you go.
I write all the time. I just don't publish everything right. I write, but it's like I'm a person who breathes through writing.
Same. People always find it strange because I will sit there and I wrote when I wrote my book Insurrection, I wrote the first draft in a month. I just sat there and
Mhm.
wrote, and I would spend 12 hours writing, and people thought I
Yeah,
was
I get it.
insane, but it's just how my brain works, right? It's when you write, you write. It's like
You
walking.
can't help it. Yeah, exactly. Like people sometimes get surprised. I write everywhere. I don't need quiet. My mind is like always already very noisy. I just like it gets to a hyper focused state. I write on underground. I write on pubs. It's just as you said. It's just like walking, and it's just something that is a way of being, I guess, for you and me and people like us.
It's funny. I wrote an article about Trump's health, and the article went viral. It's got 450,000 readers on it. Um,
Wow.
I wrote it while sitting at my son's karate class because I wrote it on my phone sitting in my son's karate class because that's when it was in my head. That's how I did it, you know?
Mhm.
So I get it. Like things happen. Like when the idea is there, you're just like, I have to get this out.
Exactly. That's the way, like, my mom and my father, they came to visit me last year in London. They were quite concerned about my Substack addiction. My Substack addiction was at the peak level then. And then my mom said, like, "Can't you just time your writing and do stuff?" And I said, like, "Inspiration doesn't come like that." Yeah, it's just, like, comes and sweeps your way. Even in Scotland, I missed the last train because I had to get it down on the paper or, like, the laptop. I was just walking around. All I needed was a plug, and I was just like a dog, like wet the puppy or something. It's just like rain pouring down rain. I'm just with my laptop everywhere, running around looking for a Starbucks because that's the only way that place that will allow me to sit without buying anything where I can use their plug. So like it was crazy. In the end, I missed the last train, which was way costly than buying something in the restaurant. Yeah.
I definitely like we went on vacation and I brought my laptop just because why not? But we were on
Yeah.
vacation and I think I wrote like 4 or 5 entire articles just because I was sitting there in the hotel room and I'm like, well, if I'm with my kids and I'm just sitting here, I can write. Like it's not it's just it's almost kinda it's the same as having a conversation with somebody else. I'm just putting it down. Um,
Yeah.
no, I completely understand that. Um,
Yeah. It yeah.
but no, I think it's awesome to hear that you're going to make your story known and broadcast it, and it's definitely a story again, I think biggest part of your story and the part that turns it from just being a story about a girl with Parkinson's is the actual fight to get it acknowledged and to get it
Mm,
back to where you are. Because I think that resonates with every woman right now in the world.
mm.
Women are in a point where they continuously are just being ignored and treated poorly. And I think you being somebody who said, I stuck through and I did what I did and I made it until I found a way to make this better is inspirational to people.
Thank you. That actually means a lot to hear. Thank you so much. And it's such a like a honor to know that my story could serve some like could become something inspirational for others out there. Because you're right, women like not only in terms of health, but with everything they're being ignored, but with health itself too. Like there's I don't know why it's like this among society, but we tend to acknowledge in a way that we make things up more. It's
Mm.
just like our complaints are like what we say is like being discarded a lot more compared to others. So in that sense, it will generally be an honor for my story because if this life is gonna serve something, at least it can help people become more inspired, especially women. I would love for that to happen.
Yeah, I've always said if I have to go through shit, I don't want to have to necessarily be I don't want to be the example, but if I have to be the example, I want to make something of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I want to thank you for joining me today. Um,
You're welcome.
I invite everybody to check out your Substack. And I do hope that when you figure out what you're going to do with your manuscript, or if it gets published, especially if it gets published or picked up, you got to make sure you come back and tell us about it.
Hmm.
And I very much look forward to being able to pick up your book one day.
Yeah, thank you. I
Because when
very
I do,
much
I'm
look
sending
forward.
it to you to sign.
Yeah, aw, thank you. I hope that day will come. I would love to,
I
but more than happy to.
I think it absolutely can, and I think you're right at the cusp of something that could really make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Thank you. Thank you for having me too. It was great to have it was great to share this with here with people in your audience and I see friends on the chat too. I'm just very happy to see them here with us too. I hope so, and I would love for my book to be like around bookshops, and I would love to send a personally signed copy. Likewise, as someone who writes, who sees writing as a way of breathing or walking, I would love to see your book one day. Hopefully, get a signed copy from you too.
Absolutely, I'll make sure it happens. But so I want to thank you for joining me. Um, to everyone else, thank you for joining us today. As always, I want to remind everybody to stay loud, stay informed, and stay dangerous. It's the only way to make the world a better place for everybody. Again, Amy, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.